Hello, everyone. Bob Fashano here, host from Keiser University the host of Lead the Way podcast. Welcome, where each month we invite a business community leader in for the podcast to share their journey, their leadership insights. And our intention on every episode is to have you experience their leadership, the insights, and so that you can apply those insights to help you be more of an effective leader. Today, I'm honored to have a good friend and a top-level leader to share his journey with you and his experience, and that would be Jaime Holland. Jaime, welcome, and thank you for coming today. Jaime is a vice president of NextEra Corporate Real Estate. And for those of our audience who may not know who NextEra is the parent company of Florida Power and Light. And I know you all know who Florida Power and Light is. And Jaime's had an extensive career there, and I've had the good fortune of spending some time with Jaime and observing how he has progressed in his leadership journey. But Jaime, maybe to start, I think a good place to start would be for you to share with the audience
Sure.
your leadership journey and your current role that you have now.
Well, thanks. It's an honor to be here, Bob. I appreciate the invitation. And, you know, for me in my leadership journey, it probably started in playing sports. I think at a very early age, I played football for many, many years, and basketball and all type of sports that required, you know, teamwork and leadership, you know, all those things that you do as a kid that you don't realize, but you're actually leading. And that really became something visible to me when I actually received a 4-year Army ROTC scholarship. And I got to really learn about formal leadership from a military perspective, and that parlayed into an opportunity to get commissioned as a second lieutenant in the United States Army, and actually lead people and put a lot of those leadership skills, both learned in the classroom as well as those learned on a sports field somewhere, to action.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for your service, first of all, Jaime. And also, there's no question, and we've all had this experience, where sports, for example, is a real good learning ground for leadership, teams, and so on. And that's a good segue into this next question I have for you.
Sure.
You know, one of the things that I know is important to you, because I know you've been on a team, football, basketball, and certainly at NextEra, you've built a team, you've been part of a team. Tell us a little bit more about what's important about team building for you. What have you learned about team building?
Yeah, so team building is essential. I think if you look back in history, or even if you look forward into the future, you're rarely going to find a big challenge that has not been solved by a team. And that's not only true in one's life, but it's also very true in business. And when building a team, it is essentially important. You know, at the end of the day, a team is only as strong as its weakest link. You know, I realized that in the United States Army, where, you know, every individual in the Army is trained in a certain way to be able to shoot, move, and communicate, if you will, without ever necessarily having to communicate verbally, right? In the business world, it can, you know, it's still a mission. It's just a different outcome. And, you know, ensuring that you have a team that is not only trained to do a good job, that is motivated, that is encouraged and supported to ultimately deliver a positive outcome to whatever we might be working on at a given time is just essential.
Boy, that's so good. You know, there's really a good nugget there for our audience to capture. You can't do it alone.
No.
One is too small. To go to great, you need a team. You need more than one. There's no lone ranger in leadership.
Yep. My grandmother used to say, "Many hands make light work."
Yes.
And that is true to this
That's
day.
so good. That's so good. You know, and in building a team, it's important that we have the right people. And, you know, Jim Collins wrote a book here, I think it was Built to Last, was this particular book, where he said, get the right people and put them on the bus and in the right seats. Getting the right people is the operative phrase here. And Jaime, I know you've had experience with this. Tell us a little bit about the characteristics that you look for in selecting a team member.
Yeah, so I think in most cases, right, there are cases where you're looking for a specific type of skill set that you might need on a team.
Mm-hmm.
But in many cases, you're looking for someone that has, I think, energy, right? Someone that has willingness, desire, grit. Because in most cases, you can teach anything.
Mm-hmm.
But the things that I just mentioned, you can't really teach. You either come with them or you don't. And ultimately, you know, those are the folks that you're going to want on your team, because if everyone is given 110%, then essentially you're given more than 100% total.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I look for when I am looking to hire a new person onto our team, is someone who is really going to give it their all, someone who has desire to grow, someone who, you know, is really mission focused
Mm-hmm.
and results oriented.
Something you said there, it's really critical. There's things that you can't teach. You know, you can't teach grit, you can't teach character, you can't teach integrity, all those things they must bring to the table. That's what you said.
Yep.
And skill sets you can do, but you're looking for people with those characteristics and those qualities to build a team. That's so good. Where does, one other element on team building, where does trust enter into team building? Trust of the leader, from the leader?
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about trust.
Yeah, I think trust is important in any relationship, as you might imagine. But, you know, in the business setting, going back to the fact that it takes many people to do, you know, a job,
Mm-hmm.
that just means that you have to have trust, right? You have to have trust that an individual not only knows what they're supposed to do and when they're supposed to do it, but they're also going to deliver. And when you don't have trust, you can quickly see that. I'm sure all of us can look at a team, and you can clearly see when trust does not exist, because it's probably not a very high functioning team, because everyone is concerned about, or some members of the team might be concerned about, oh, well, someone's going to stab me in the back, or they don't have my best interest at heart. And by doing that, you're putting a lot more emphasis and energy into, you know, ensuring that, you know, something's going to get done, and you might have to step in to do it because the other individual is not going to do it. And that is that can be very dysfunctional for a team, and there's, you know, results will actually show that.
That's so good. You know, Jaime, in your current role, which I think has been a couple of years now, as Vice President of Corporate Real Estate for NextEra, talk to us a little bit about that role and how team building and trust has filtered into that responsibility for you. Can you share that with us?
Yeah, certainly. So, you know, we have a very large responsibility to ensure that, you know, the properties that we own at NextEra, that we're great stewards of those properties, that we're taking care of them, that we are maintaining them. And it goes beyond just employees, right? We have a large set of contractors that help and support us in achieving that. And, you know, we really have to instill trust in folks to make sure that they're going to get it done, because the ramifications can be very serious if we don't get it done. Now, of course, we always try to inspect what we expect. That's something that I learned along the way. But if you're always inspecting what you expect, then you probably have a trust issue that you need to resolve. And doing that quickly is paramount, because time waits for no man, as we all know. And it takes a lot of energy in doing that, to make sure that work is going to get done in the proper fashion.
I hope our audience really caught that. Because here's what I heard, which I think is powerful. If you're always inspecting what you expect, something is wrong. I want to switch gears a little bit. I know you currently are mentoring someone at NextEra, somebody that I do some work with there and coach, but I know you've been mentored too over the years. And so mentoring and being mentored is real critical in business and any profession. I'm sure it was in the military. It certainly is in sports. It clearly is involved in business. Share with us a little bit about your experience as a mentor and as a mentee.
Yeah, so mentorship is extremely important, and I'm extremely passionate about it. And the reason being is when I look back and if I've had any semblance of success, it's really been because I stand on other people's shoulders. And many people have, fed into me, and I think it is my turn to feed into others. Right now, that doesn't mean that people don't continue to feed into me, because they certainly do. I have a great deal of mentors, but I'm now at a phase, I think, in my career where I'm actually mentoring more people than people are mentoring me, and I think that's a good sign. And it's also a way for me to be able to give back to people. You'll be pretty amazed at how appreciative folks are with just spending a couple of minutes with them a day and giving them your point of view, right, which may differ or may align with their ultimate point of view, and then having candid conversations and having someone who they feel close to and trust, and getting the best information and or guidance, and they also and also having a vested interest in one's career or life.
Yeah, certainly you're not alone as a high-level executive or a business leader. I have not talked to anyone that is currently mentoring someone that has not been mentored.
That's right.
And has not had that experience of how important mentoring is in their life, and to the point where now they're so-called paying it forward, we might say. But mentoring really is critical.
Yes.
And thank you for sharing that. Okay, so Jaime, I'm going to switch gears for just a moment. In business, in leadership, it's inevitable that we don't have conflicts, disagreements with team members, even our peers. It's inevitable that we don't have to have hard conversations as leaders, and I'm sure in your career you've had that experience. What I'm curious about and interested in learning is, how do you prepare for that type of hard conversation or conflict? Is there a process that you go through before you engage in that situation, whatever it might be? Can you share that with our audience?
Sure, that's a great question, and for me, I try to start with the end in mind, right? Now how we're going to get there, not exactly sure, but ultimately with the end in mind. So I'll give an example. If you've got to give someone some feedback because perhaps their performance isn't meeting expectation, then really you establish, number one, what was the expectation, right? And then you talk about why perhaps, or what's missing in the expectation. And I think normally if you can get to that point early, then you can have a more definitive conversation, right? Because these type of situations can become very emotional. Why? Because we're people, and people are complex. And you try to keep the emotion out, if at all possible. But understand the fact that the person you're delivering this feedback to is human, and they're going to have an emotion, and they should have an emotion. And if they care, they most likely will have an emotion. I get concerned when people don't have an emotion, quite honestly. But if they understand, again, going back to the trust thing, if they understand that you're coming from a position that you trust them, that you have faith in them, that you ultimately are doing this for their best interest or the best interests of the company, you tend to get there. Now, is it always easy? Absolutely not. But that's where you have to be a little courageous as a leader to be able to have those tough conversations. And you shouldn't just end there. After you have the tough conversation, you need to continue to support that individual to try to help them to get better. So it's not just a one and done. It's say, we have a problem, this is how I would encourage you to address it, and then we're going to work on it together. And that's where the partnership and teamwork come in, right? Just that from the leader perspective, you have a role as well. And you should be encouraging your folks, you should be giving them resources to continue to get better. And do the things that need to be done, and it's not just you're not just an authority, but rather a partner.
You are prepared, and you do prepare before you go into this conversation. But I love the way you end it. I love the term partner. You see your role as their partner in their growth, and you're helping them grow and get better. And that's one of the fundamental roles that we as leaders play, is to foster the growth in the people that we're responsible for, the people that we have influence over. You know, personal growth is optional, but my personal belief is I don't think it's optional for a leader. I think a leader needs to have a mindset of lifelong learning, and I know you do, because we've talked about that before, but I'd like you to share with the audience of what you are currently doing, what you have done and what you're currently doing to grow personally as a leader.
Yeah. So you're exactly right. So my intent is to set the example, to emulate what I'd like to see in folks who might be looking at me or who I might have influence over. And learning is a big part of that. If you're not learning, you're not growing. That means you are not advancing, and that is very clear. And that's especially in today's times. As fast as the world seems to be moving and how information is so free flowing.
Mm-hmm. As we close here, I have a couple more things that I want to chat with you about. One of them is I always like to learn from people that I chat with about what is probably the greatest, if there is one, if you can think of a single leadership lesson that you've learned, what would you want to share with our audience about the number one leadership lesson that you've learned?
Probably never walk past the opportunity to go deeper. And what I mean by that is, when I first got commissioned into the Army as a platoon leader, although we had 4 years of very, very effective training, you're never really prepared to take over a platoon of 45 men and women, most of whom could be your mother or father, and realizing just the gravity of your responsibility, and not only the responsibility for the 45 soldiers, but also their families. And that was the piece that kind of like, oh, we're responsible for them too. And it kind of made sense. So what I mean by going deeper is you're leading the whole person. And the whole person is not just the individual that you see in front of them. We are all, members of a family, and that has a great impact on how you show up every day.
Boy,
one of the most simple but effective way to do that is ask someone about their family. Learn more about them than just the private first class or the sergeant, right? Understand what's going on with their family to the extent that you can, or to the extent that they want to share. And when you hear something like, hey, little Johnny has a baseball game on Saturday at 1, you're like, oh, okay. Show up. Go to the game. They didn't ask you to go, but go to the game, even if it's for 30 minutes, and see what that does with your relationship with that individual, right? That's going deeper.
That's so good, because when we're leading an individual, I think what I heard you say, and that's so powerful, there's another nugget for us to capture and apply, is the idea of going deeper, but looking at that person not just as a person, but that person has people around them, a family. The person has people that are influencing them, and they're influencing others. That's really, really powerful. One last question. There's a younger Jaime Holland someplace that could be watching
my son.
this.
He's got his same name.
Okay. But there might be somebody on this podcast. Could be one of our alumni, one of our graduate students, or somebody just starting out as an executive in business. What advice would you give that person if they asked you to give them one piece of advice?
What I would probably say is be careful what you say no to. It's something that I commonly tell folks that I mentor. And I think what many people find in their careers is that there's so many different opportunities, right? And in many cases, fear sets in, and those opportunities get presented, and because of fear, you don't even contemplate it. And when you don't even contemplate it, then how many opportunities go by that could have, been a shaping moment for one's career?
Wow.
And it's because of fear, right? In many cases, it's, well, maybe I'm not equipped to do this. Oh, well, I don't have this skill set, or whatever the case may be. But, earlier in this discussion, I talked about the fact that if you show up with energy, if you show up with the grit, if you show up with the willingness to learn, right, you could probably do just about anything. So don't take yourself out of the game because you don't have a certain skill, or you don't think you have a certain set of experiences that would be effective for that opportunity. Don't take yourself out of the game, right? Because you'll be amazed at what you can do if given the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Jaime. There are so many nuggets there that our audience can take away and apply to their leadership today. So I encourage you, watch this, listen to this again, take some notes. There are so many great insights that you've given us today, and I appreciate that very much. Thank you so much, Jaime, for your time. Very, very much. I very appreciate it. All right, for now, we're going to say goodbye. We're going to sound off for now, but we're going to encourage you to keep watching, keep listening for our next episode at Lead the Way from Keiser University. Bye for now.